Hey mommies, how are you? So I did a video a few days ago about breastfeeding and how it's impacted by labor, and just we talked a lot about postpartum depression. We talk about a traumatic birth and how that impacts breastfeeding too. So I explained a little bit about how even a C-section is classed as a traumatic birth, and that in turn obviously affects your emotions. It puts your whole body off course in regards to hormones, and that can obviously impact your breastfeeding, how your breastfeeding journey starts. But I wanted to talk more today about specific like labor situations that you would have. So the most two common things that would impact your breastfeeding journey in regards to the type of labor that you have is number one, C-section. We're seeing a huge rise in C-sections all across the country. There's hospitals that have as much as like 80% births being C-sections. And and the reason why that's for concern, there's nothing wrong if you have to have a C-section because it's a true emergency. That's why it's called emergency C-section. Okay, it's not a lot of doctors or OBGYNs are just giving C-sections because it's just convenient, and it's a win-win for the insurance companies, for the hospitals, for the doctor, because obviously C-sections are very expensive. So a lot of moms are talked into getting a C-section, not because they medically need it, but because it's just convenient for everybody. It's also convenient for your OBGYN because he knows exactly when he's gonna do it, so he knows how he can plan it into his calendar and stuff like that. So I don't wanna sound like a downer or negative or cynical or sarcastic about it, but it really is true. And that's something that you have to look into when you're choosing your doctor, your OBGYN, and the hospital where you're gonna give birth, okay? So really two big factors. And the thing with C-section, okay, that causes so many problems is because babies are supposed to be born vaginal, okay? There's a lot of different reasons, not just for breastfeeding, but also for their health. When they come through the vaginal canal, they get kind of loaded with all this mucus that is in your vagina, and it's full of like things that are going to protect them, and it's going to give them like, it's kind of like, imagine as if they're having like a natural antibacterial bath, basically. So it's going to really protect them from all the nasty bugs and things that are out here in the open world. So obviously, also a lot of things happen when they're coming out through the vagina too, because the baby has to work during the labor too. So when the baby comes out, he's all like pumped up, like he just had a workout, and he's like, woo, yeah, I need my protein shake. So straight away he's wanting to go on the breast. He's gonna be hungry, he's gonna be stimulated, he's gonna be motivated. So all of that happens too with your baby. And the other thing that happens is once the placenta comes out, after you birth your baby, a lot of different signals are going to be triggered to your brain, the release of prolactin, a lot of oxytocin going on in your body. So all of those things contribute to your body kicking into gear to having milk production, okay? And a lot of the times that happens when you have a C-section is your baby gets taken away, okay, while you get cleaned up, while you kind of recover a little bit. So obviously that first hour after your baby is born is hugely important for breastfeeding, because once your baby is on your tummy, skin to skin, his body temperature is going to regulate, he's going to want to go on the breast. Like I said, all the release of these hormones are going to put into gear your milk production. So a lot of things happen, and that can't happen if your baby's taken away, which is what usually happens. It's very difficult to breastfeed right after you've had your baby because you've just had like major surgery. It's like a big surgery. A lot of people, like I say, are just like put it off, like, oh yeah, I just had a C-section. A C-section is a huge surgery, and it comes with a lot of recovery. And there's also a lot of pain involved. And when there's a lot of pain involved, it's very difficult for your body to release oxytocin, which is that feel-good hormone, that relaxing hormone, that again is going to help with the release of milk production. Okay, so you can see there how especially C-section really can affect your breastfeeding journey. But there's lots of things that you can do if you know that you're gonna have a C-section, hopefully because you have to have it, not just because your doctor's telling you that you should have it. You can get prepared well in advance, and I'll talk about that. I talk a lot about that actually in my breastfeeding secrets course, but I'll do another video about that later. I don't want to overload you right now, but that is the good news. If you prepare ahead of time, there's a lot of different things you can do to help with that milk production so that it doesn't affect your breastfeeding journey as you start off, okay? The other one too is induction, okay? And induction, you think like, oh, that's what I used to think, because my first baby was an induction, which I totally wish I hadn't done. Again, I was misinformed because I was told that my baby was too big when I was 39 weeks, and that if I waited till I was 40 weeks, he was gonna be like a ginormous baby, which he wasn't. He was just an 8-pound baby, very normal baby, and that my body really wouldn't be able to take it, so it would lead to C-section, which was definitely not what I wanted, so I thought my best option was to get the induction. And an induction, you will have a vaginal birth, your body will be injected with Pitocin, which is like an artificial form of oxytocin, so that your uterus can start to contract and basically the cycle of labor begins. But the thing with that is that you have to have IV fluids for such a long time, okay? And then what happens with that is that once your baby's born, your body is like super like filled up with fluid, so you have a lot of water retention. And then what happens is, instead of your nipples looking nice like this one, they're gonna be flat nipples. So basically there's not gonna be this little protruding here nipple. It's kind of just gonna be all flat. So it's extremely difficult for your baby to latch onto your breast. If this is flat, it's just, his lips are just gonna kind of go like this. So he's not gonna be able to latch on as he should be able to latch on. And the other thing that happens too is your baby, same as you, because during all your labor, so we're talking maybe 12 hours, you've been taking all this extra fluid, your baby's gonna be taking that extra fluid too, okay? So maybe after they're born too, they're gonna be groggy, same as a C-section too, from all the liquid and all the meds and stuff that you've had, your baby's gonna be groggy, not gonna be as stimulated. And basically they're not going to be as keen to want to latch on. And the other thing that can happen too when you have an induction is that your baby is going to be weighed and he's going to be really chunky because he has all this fluid in him. And then maybe after a few hours, maybe the next day, there's going to be a drastic weight change because your baby's peed all that water out. So when they come to weigh your baby at the hospital, they're going to be like, oh my God, he's lost so much weight, like that's more than 10%, like oh my God, alarm bells ringing everywhere, and like a super catastrophic emergency. That's how they look at it, because they're very rigid in their way of thinking. And then they're gonna be like, no, this baby needs to eat more, you need to supplement with formula because he needs to make up for the weight that he's lost, which it necessarily isn't weight that he's lost, it's just fluid that he's lost, which happened because of the induction. And then one thing leads to the next, okay? So it's really important that you understand how each type of labor, each type of birth works, what happens, and how you can prepare before that birth. Again, I always say this to mommies that are gonna have babies in hospitals. Knowledge is power. Your medical professionals and nurses and everyone, they're always obviously trying to make sure that you are taken care of, but they go by protocols and by the book, and they have a lot of strict guidelines that they have to follow, and they can't just like take each situation as it is. They pretty much categorize each thing, like I said, like textbook basically. So they're not gonna exactly analyze each situation or what's gone on and make sure that everything is done, everything possible is done so you can breastfeed your baby. No. As soon as they see signs that don't go with what they're used to, straight away they're gonna want to supplement with formula, because that's the safest choice. That's always what they're trying to do. They're trying to be like extremely over safe, so they're not gonna look at other alternatives or other possibilities, okay? So just wanted to inform you about those things, especially when it comes to labor. The other thing that can affect how your breastfeeding journey starts is if you have things like breast augmentation, or if you had a breast reduction, anything that's interfered with this precious little thing here, your nipples, okay, your areola, obviously it's gonna cause nerve damage, and that's gonna affect your milk ducts inside. That's gonna affect how your breasts are able to release the milk, your breast milk storage capacity, so a lot of other things. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in another video that I'll do later this week. But if you want to learn more about that, my Breastfeeding Secrets course, the first chapter really goes deeply into it, because that was something that I myself did not know. I was completely ignorant to all that information. A lot of moms that I talk with today, and I help today, that are pregnant or that have just had a baby, a lot of their struggles that they're having after they have a baby in regards to breastfeeding is because of the labor that they had. So it's super important that if you're pregnant, mommy, you know what you have to do before you go to the hospital to have your baby, or if you just had your baby and things are not going how they should be, so that you know what happened, that it's not you, that your body is not shutting down on you, that something triggered the consequence that you're experiencing now, but there's things that you can do to fix it, okay? That's the good news, that there's always something you can do to fix it. And Tina is saying, of course, okay, hi Tina. And yes, there's always something you can do to fix it. Do not give up on breastfeeding, okay? Your body is supposed to do this. Your body is amazing, okay? And the fact that we can make a baby, we can grow our baby in our womb for 9 months, and then our bodies produce the nutrition, everything, every nutritional need, every emotional need, any safety need that your baby needs, your body provides it, okay? So don't give up on your body. Don't just, like I said, don't just go for, I don't wanna say the easy option is formula, because in a lot of cases it's definitely needed, and thank God that formula exists, because otherwise what else would we do? Although there is other options, that's why there's donor milk, and there's a lot of people that would be willing to also breastfeed your baby. I've done that before for friends. I've breastfed their baby directly from my breast, and there's lots of milk banks, so formula should always be like your very, very, very last choice, okay? So just wanted to bring this to you, mommy, so that you are better informed. That's what I'm always trying to do, empower you, so that you know all the information before you make like a drastic choice, or so that you know what options and choices you have. Okay, bye mommies. And please, if you have had an induction or have had a C-section, let us know what your experience was like with breastfeeding, how it impacted your breastfeeding journey, and maybe what you did to help improve how breastfeeding was going, or kind of a little bit more about your experience, so that we know a little bit more about do's and don'ts. Bye mommies.